Welcome to this episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Good. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Bill Williams, who's on a mission to shock us out of our static daily routines. He is known for his unique brand of electrified methodologies for the workplace, now available in his best-selling book, Electric Life. In this episode, we're going to dive into 6 transformative microsteps, including how to find your hurricane and harness that energy for resilience, why emotional honesty trumps saying, "I'm just fine," and how curiosity is your ultimate superpower. We will also explore the art of reframing challenges, inspiring teams with intentional energy, and embracing self-full growth for long-term success. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast, where we engage with esteemed thought leaders and explore research-backed strategies and techniques that empower leaders at every level to achieve meaningful results that drive lasting change. Welcome to the program, Bill.
Charles, so thrilled to be with you here today. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Always like to start these with a little bit of background, have our listeners learn more about you and your work and how you got that moniker, Electric Bill.
Oh, Charles, I tell you, the one thing people always notice about me every time we meet is how much energy I have. And so they sort of coined that phrase for me, Electric Bill. But what's really interesting is my mom always wanted to call me Billy. And her friend said, "You can't call him Billy. He's going to be a grown man, bald like his dad. And in 2024, it won't be appropriate to call him Billy." So they put William on the birth certificate. My name gets a bit more interesting in that I was born in northwestern Ontario, Canada. And the town that I was born in, the birth certificate literally reads William Grant Williams from Fort William, Ontario. And I'm actually the son of an electrician, which makes it even more appropriate that I'm now today known as Electric Bill. I'm just messing with different fuses and wirings than my father did. I'm working on the hard wiring and the soft wiring of human beings. He was working on electrical outlets.
The first micro step of that book, which is a great book on leadership, is find your hurricane. I've never heard of that before, that metaphor, but it's a fascinating metaphor. Can you explain how this concept applies to leaders and their professional lives?
Well, Charles, really, I think a little bit of background on it. André Saint-Legoux is a famous French scientist. And back in 1930s, he discovered that bumblebees, basically, when you look at them, they should not be able to physically fly. Based on their weight and their ratios, those little teeny wings they have, there's no way that they should be able to fly. Problem is, nobody told the bumblebees. And the other thing that's amazing about it is that bumblebees don't actually flap their wings. They create what's known as thermodynamic stall. They rotate their wings, and that's what lifts them up. So I started thinking about that. If nobody told the bumblebee it could fly, but it does. And what is it that lifts me up? And what is it that allows me to fly? And so what I really challenge leaders to do is to really think about what are the things that got them into the field they're in? What got them into the industry they're in? It's rare that somebody comes into a field as the leader. They usually start as some kind of an individual contributor. What was it that connected you to that? What's your purpose? And when we really discover that, that allows us to float and fly, if you will. And now we can choose our direction. Where are we going to go in our leadership journey based on that? So that's a tiny little bit about that bumblebee and that hurricane. It's really a metaphor for what lifts you up, and every one of us is hardwired differently. So I challenge our listeners to possibly even pause right now and think about what lifts you up. Why did you get into the field you got into when you did? Hopefully they'll plus continue and listen to the rest of the podcast as well.
Great insight. I love that metaphor, showing up and strapping on your little hurricane of energy so that you don't sink, so that we show up for ourselves first, right? Not for our bosses or our friends or even our families, but we show up for ourselves so that we can float like bumblebees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the key. That's it. You got it.
Well, the next one, I love this story that you have in the book about this ancient Zen story, which I think is so apropos, especially this day and age, and in this time that we're living in right now. And I'll read it out briefly from the
Please,
book,
yeah.
and then hopefully you can unpack it and show how it applies to leadership. But in this Zen story, an old Chinese farmer had one old horse that he used to plow the fields. One day, the horse ran away into the hills. Everyone said, "We are so sorry for your bad luck." The old man replied, "Bad luck? Good luck. Who knows?" A week later, the horse returned with a herd of wild horses, which now belonged to the old man. Everyone said, "We are so happy for your good luck." The old man replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" The moral of the story is that human beings have a tendency, right, to interpret events as either good luck or bad luck, and we often do that unconsciously.
Yeah, absolutely, Charles. And what fascinates me about this story is, as leaders, how do we find the other perspective? So let's go back to, as a leader, we need to do strategic planning. And what I challenge my clients with their strategic planning is really to do an environmental scan and think about what's happening in the world around them. A part of that, one of the oldest, most common ones, is a SWOT analysis. The strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, Charles. And what I find more often than not when I connect with clients, they have historically done them as brainstorming sessions. They're completely detached. They just have a great list of all their strengths, a great list of all of their weaknesses, all their opportunities, and all their threats, but they don't actually do the analysis of it. What I work with in my clients with this is, hidden inside every strength is potentially a weakness. And inside every threat is potentially an opportunity. So when I'm looking at this good luck, bad luck story, what I challenge people to do is really do an environmental scan. What are the threats outside of their department, potentially outside of their whole organization? And hidden in every one of those threats is an opportunity to improve, an opportunity to, develop a product, maybe create a brand new product, a new service that's out there. So with this story, leaders can really reframe situations to positivity, if you will, by looking at, given that threat, what opportunity does that create for us? And how can we possibly get closer to our clients and create even greater loyalty by being aware of the threats and using it as an opportunity to connect with our customers and really make an impact? Be proactive rather than reactive and get out in front of those threats so they can leverage those.
There was another guest on the podcast that said we really need to reframe our challenges and say, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? And change that perspective to say, in the end, it could be something good could come out of this versus saying that it's just all bad and you're just going down that downward spiral.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to get sucked into the vortex. Use your hurricane to lift you up again and look for those opportunities.
Well, you also mentioned that you believe that fine is not a feeling, and we shouldn't be saying that we're just feeling fine. We need to acknowledge our feelings, be upfront, honest, and transparent with those so we can practice more emotional honesty in our daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm finding, Charles, especially today, and this story actually of fine is not a feeling, was a situation for me where my significant relationship ended. I was married, and as a part of that, my organization offered employee assistance, and this was many, many years ago, before we were ending the stigma around mental health. So I needed to dial up some courage and admit that I had a challenge, getting through the end of this relationship. And so I met with a psychologist, and she said, "Bill, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." And she said, "No, Bill, how are you really?" And I said, I'm fine." She said, "Bill, fine is not a feeling." So this wasn't my IP. This is my intellectual property. This is my psychologist that said that to me. And I said, "Okay, hold on. I still don't quite get it." She said, "Bill, are you happy, sad, glad, mad, or angry?" And Charles, what I realized then, this is back in the 80s, was I was numb. For me, when that relationship ended, my emotions were just, I was stifling them. I was pushing them all down. And so when I say fine is not a feeling, I truly, well, look at any emotions wheel. And to our audience, please Google emotions wheel and just add the word simple to the end of it. See what images come up for you. But what this allows us to do is, so many people right now in this world are emotionally unaware of even how they are feeling. They're in autopilot, which is not living your life, it's just going through life. And so I challenge people, whether it's negative or whether it's positive, look at the emotions wheel and really figure out, what is the emotion you're experiencing at this moment in time right now. And given something like that, what it allows you to do is to realize that maybe right now you're annoyed. And what annoyed means in the emotions wheel, you're frustrated. And what frustrated does is it takes you back to angry. And so it's a really interesting opportunity for people to really connect with, how are they feeling in this now moment, and own that emotion, because we have the ability to choose our emotions. If we go back to Viktor Frankl, he challenges us to separate the stimulus from our response. And in that opportunity between, really understand what's the emotion you're feeling right now and potentially change your behavior based on that. So your emotions don't overflow into other people's days and lives, that you can take responsibility for them. It's a bit of a longer response to that question for you, Charles, but I trust that it makes sense.
And it's so important for leaders to realize this and everyone to realize that that just feeling just fine, just neutral about what's going on around you is a form of lying to yourself. It's risking putting yourself in a mindset where you're not allowing yourself to see the whole picture really of who you are, right? And
Yeah.
people who understand and perceive their own emotions, they're better at understanding other people's body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions as well. So we want to make sure that we practice that emotional intelligence, that we practice feeling empathy, because that's so critical, especially for leaders.
Neutral is the new negative. And a bit of a joke for your audience as well. I challenge people, especially in virtual environments, especially when you're on a Zoom or a Teams or a WebEx call, you're looking at all those faces to notice how many people are suffering from what I call RJF. And that stands for resting jerk face. When you're not smiling, you look like a jerk. You don't look approachable. You're not creating psychological safety for people to truly be honest with you. So pay attention, check in, stop lying to yourself, and really be aware of how are you feeling in that moment.
Another thing I see a lot with leaders is that many people talk about a song, a book, or a movie that inspired them. But so few people can define what the word inspire means, right? Spire means breath, in means, well, to take in. So to breathe life into people instead of suck the energy out of them, because I know I'm sure you have people in your life, hopefully not too many, that are energy vampires that just suck that energy out of you. How can leaders really kind of find people and be around people that inspire them and minimize that interaction with those energy vampires?
Well, I like the way that you put the spin on what I wrote about in the book. So yeah, you beautifully defined inspiration, and I think that's great. But those energy vampires that you refer to them as, I challenge us as leaders to maybe lean into them a little bit more as well. And rather than checking up on them, check in with them. What's going on for you today that this is the emotion that you're feeling? And what can we do about it? Sadly, I'm at the point in my life now where I'm losing dear friends. It used to be grandparents and then parents, and now I'm at the point where I'm losing friends. And life is just too short, Charles, to not be happy. But when you're not happy, connect back to what is making you unhappy, and then what can you do about it? If you can do something about it, be proactive, make a suggestion, figure out a way to improve. And if you will, later on in the book, I talk about celebrating miss hyphen takes and what can you do the next time round to make it even better. But watch out for those energy vampires, but maybe help them, if you will. And maybe not help, maybe support them, so that they can get to where they can truly be contributing to you and the team. And looking at it, I mean, quite frankly, back in ancient times, the Catholic Church was promoting everybody into sainthood. And Pope, I've forgotten his name now. He was the 16th, I believe it was. Anyway, that's not the important part of the story. What's important was that so many people were being appointed for sainthood. He put in the devil's advocate so that we look at the negative side of things. And maybe sometimes we need to be aware of the contrary side as well. Make the best decisions, but make sure that we're looking at it holistically and from a really balanced approach. Don't jump in with both feet in blind faith. Maybe that energy vampire is there to help you see another perspective that you need to see.
Well, and for everyone, really, you need to give the energy you want to receive. I love how you state that. I love how you approach every conversation. You give a damn every single time. So you have some insights in the book and from other things that I've heard from you. And a lot of friends say, hey, Bill, you go up to the hotel because you're going to get us that upgraded room. You're going to give us the upgraded table at dinner, right? But it's nothing that you do outside of just showing genuine connection and giving that energy and showing people that you care about them and you appreciate them for who they are.
Yeah. This has been it. Actually, I just came back from New York City last weekend, and sure enough, we got to the front desk, and you know what I said, Charles, simply to them is, "It's so good to be back." That's all I said. And they're like, "Oh, Mr. Williams, have you ever had one of our rooms with a balcony?" I'm like, "No, I haven't." They're like, "Well, would you like to try it?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I would love to." Whether it's your grocery store checkout, whether it's the front desk reception at a hotel, you're dealing with human beings. There's a lot of AI that's out there. It's more and more is coming. Every opportunity you have to interact with a human being, I challenge you, take advantage of that. Make that connection. AI can't necessarily upgrade you right away. They're going to see your loyalty points, and that's what they're going to make decisions based on. But if there's ever a human being that can make that interaction special for you, leverage it, take advantage of it, go for it. And all you need to do is establish some eye contact if it's appropriate, a genuine smile, a comment, a reflection, an observation of something that's going on in and around the background. That's what makes it a human interaction. And it's amazing what human beings can do for and with each other.
And we had a recent educator that really brought some insight into that. Make eye contact, but more importantly, make the other person feel seen, that you're really looking at them and paying attention to them and actively listening to them. Because eye contact can be just where you're looking at them, but they know that your mind is not there and you're not engaged in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I challenge people to treat each other as special, valued, and important. It's another micro step in the book. Treat people SVI, and we may have time to talk about that today. But yeah, we all are unique. We all add some form of value, and we all deserve to be seen and heard. So really take the time. Put the phone away, close the computer monitor, put the phone on silent, and just really connect with and engage with those people. That's when they know that you care, when they know that you give a damn, there's a stronger probability that they will care and they will give a damn too towards the results of the organization and the team, and satisfying your customers.
And we gain energy when we're honest, transparent, and truthful. So you don't have to be dishonest. You don't have to make up lies or half truths to get what you want. Just be open and honest and truthful and engaging and connect with other people. And I think that connection piece really people are wanting and needing now more than ever.
Yeah, and Charles, I challenge people in some of my workshops and keynotes, and thousands of people, think of them in the audience, and I'll ask them, raise your hand if you're honest. And almost everybody will raise their hand, and I'm like, okay, hold on a second. No, no, no. Raise your hand if you're dishonest. I need a smaller sample size. And, there's always one or two people usually in the back that will raise their hand. But then it gives me the opportunity to really challenge people with how do they define honesty, and sharing how I define honesty. And honesty for me, Charles, is a combination of two things. One part of honesty is speaking the truth. And I'm pretty sure our leadership community is not lying to people. I'll leave it at that. However, the other side of honesty is being open. And how many times in the last week, in the last month, have you been in a meeting and somebody will ask your thoughts or your opinions, and you're just like, you know what, it's really not going to make a difference. I just want to get back to my desk, back to my office, and do what I need to do. And we aren't open with our ideas. And so when I'm talking about honesty, I'm really challenging people to share their thoughts, share their opinions. But before that can even happen, the leader needs to have created that psychologically safe space where I can speak my mind without fear of being, reprimanded for my thoughts. It's those thoughts that'll get us to bigger and better places, continually improving.
And there's a lot of talk now with since the pandemic and now everything that's happening in the economy, political climate is you need to put on your oxygen mask first as a survival tactic. But then we get some criticism regarding that. So we think that, well, they're just being selfish. But you mentioned don't think of it as noticing yourself and putting yourself first as selfish. In fact, it's critical for your own life to be self full. Love for you to unpack that because I know that's a saying that your mother gave you when you were younger, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. My mother, Alice Margaret Foster Williams, watching down, smiling on us right now. And she said, Billy, when you're selfish, you're doing it for yourself, for yourself. That's it. That's all. It's just all about you. But when you're self full, it's really thinking about what's the impact that I make on other people. So yeah, don that oxygen mask, if you will, first. But I really think about it. And Charles, this came through for me because I used to give everything I had. And somehow my body had a way of keeping me up to that. But I was basically functioning on fumes. And then it would be a vacation time or a holiday time that I had booked in my calendar where my body goes, oh, you've blocked this time to be away from work. Now is a time for you to get sick because I had exhausted myself. And so that wasn't allowing me to take care of the important people in my personal life, to take care of the people on my team. And so I really realized that being self full is realizing that I must maintain myself physically, mentally, emotionally, maybe even spiritually, depending on what your beliefs are, so that I can then take care of the people that are important in my life. So selfish is doing it for you. Self-full is taking care of you so you can take care of other people. So that's the distinction I like to make.
Many people, though, when they look at work and they think of, what's meaningful to them in the work environment, they really don't know kind of what to pay attention to. And you say what makes work fun and worthwhile is the alignment between our values and what we do. And that alignment really has two factors to consider. One is meaningfulness, and the other is work-life balance.
For the longest time, Charles, I really wanted to look at how do I fit in? And as I was living my life, I was realizing that I wasn't being authentic. If I fit in, that is because I'm adapting who I am to connect with these people. What I really look for now is, where do I belong? And when I belong, it's because I'm bringing my true, genuine, authentic self to work. And so I challenge leaders to really look at that concept of, how do they allow the diversity we all have diverse teams because we're all different individuals. We're different human beings. Congratulations, you have a diverse organization. But are you really leveraging that diversity? And does everybody on your team really have that sense that they belong here? And this is a place that they can really, truly contribute and make a significant difference. So that's another part of the challenge that I like to bring to my clients in my talks.
Well, leaders hopefully have lots of superpowers, but one particular superpower you say they should really lean into, and that's curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity for me is critical, because so often somebody will say something and I'm like, oh, I've never thought about it that way. Quite frankly, I don't agree. And what I'm seeing right now in North America, Charles, I know you're in the United States and I'm in Canada, and I'm really seeing a divisiveness. I'm really seeing that people, if we don't agree right off the start, I'm going to shut you down. I'm not going to listen to you. What are they afraid of? I don't understand what people are afraid of. Really, what I want people to do is to get curious. It's like, tell me more about it. How do you see it that way? Why do you see it that way? What makes it that way for you? Get curious about it and be open to it. I challenge people to not have an open mind, because when your mind is open, that means there's space for a new idea, but there's still something in that mind. I challenge people to come at it with an empty mind. And when we empty our minds, that means we're completely without prejudice. And I can truly listen to this other person's perspective. I don't have to agree. And that's another interesting thing for me with communication, Charles. My goal, my responsibility is to prove to you that I understood what you said. I don't have to agree. But there's this beautiful communication loop or circle. And so, it begins with the sender. We have our own filters and our life experiences that we filter our message through. And we have the message. We send that to the receiver. The receiver has their life experiences and things that they filter that message through for their understanding. Now, I was in Western Canada. I was in British Columbia with my sister and brother-in-law. My sister and I were doing a chore in the kitchen, and my brother-in-law was doing his chores outside. And he came into the kitchen. He says, "Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful day out there." And my sister's response, "We're not going golfing." And I'm like, what just happened here? And she said, our communication circle is perfect. It's complete. We know each other so well. As soon as my brother-in-law, Bob, comes into the room, my sister, Ellie, if he's smiling and says it's gorgeous out there, she knows he wants to go golfing, and she loves to golf too. They would go. Away they would go. That's beautiful. Effective communication is being understood in the way intended. They had that communication loop, but too often we don't have that effective communication loop. And so something I love to say, Charles, it's a bit of a twister. So see if you follow along here. I know you think you understand what you thought I said. I'm not sure you realize what I said isn't what I meant. But I won't know that until I take the time to get curious and listen to you. What did you understand? And now I have the opportunity to close a communication gap. Again, the goal isn't to change your mind. The goal is to ensure that you understood what I said, that I understood what you said in the way you intended it. So let me say it one more time. I know you think you understand what you thought I said. I'm not sure you realize what I said isn't what I meant.
But you also say this curiosity superpower you can turn on yourself and leverage to give you more energy-giving changes. So by asking yourself certain questions like, why am I doing this out of habit? Do I really enjoy it? Do I feel vulnerable to constant critique from others or from myself? Am I feeling managed rather than led? And maybe that's a distinction you can provide for us. And what might I do differently by But asking those questions, creating that awareness is going to allow you to make these energy giving changes that's going to hopefully help your journey and give you more vigor, life, and energy in everything that you do.
Yeah, I mean, autopilot is not a good mode for me. It is nice to know that in a critical situation, I can go onto autopilot. But and I agree with Guy on this one. Whenever we ask a why question, more often than not, it's going to put somebody on the defensive. As soon as you ask why, it's like, whoa, I've got to validate, I've got to, substantiate why I did what I did. As soon as we are activated in our amygdala, all of our energy goes to our limbs. We're ready to run away. We're ready to punch if we need to. So it's fight, flight, or freeze. And what happens is, you probably know, Charles, maybe our listeners know, but if not, when we have activated our defense mechanisms, the amygdala is engaged, we cannot access the executive functions of our brain. So here we are in fight, flight, or freeze, but we cannot critically think. We can't analyze, and we can't make good, sound decisions. So what I challenge people is, avoid that why question, ask a how question, as Guy shared, or what makes you think that way? What has led you to believe that? And really explore that through curiosity. Because here's the distinction for me between management and leadership. Management doesn't know what it wants until it gets what it doesn't want. Even then, it still doesn't know what it wants. It just knows it doesn't want that, whatever that was. Management's job is to maintain the status quo through policies and procedures. Now, if you're maintaining the status quo, we can ask our finance people, plot that on a graph for us. What shape would we create if we're maintaining the status quo? That's going to be a straight line, a flat line. If I take you to the general hospital with a flat line, you're gone. So leadership, though, is abundantly clear about what good performance looks like. And leaders have the ability to make things better and better all the time. So that's my mantra as a leader, is how can I make things better here? How can I make for a better top line revenue income? How can I make for better bottom line? How can I make the environment better so that my people choose to contribute to what's going on here? Leadership is constantly making things better. And we help people find new and better ways of doing what we've always done. So get out of the management mindset. It's a semantic. It's just a semantic, but really focus on leading people rather than managing them.
I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. If it has, I ask you to share it with someone who would also benefit from it. If you've been enjoying and gaining knowledge from this podcast, then subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find all the previous episodes of the podcast and additional learning resources. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify and leave up to a 5-star review.